was a hugely disconnected, selfish, aggressive, neglectful mother.
Entitled.
Because my kids were being hurt. With entitlement, they were being hurt. With people's advice, and they didn't have a mother up the front saying, I don't care what the world's opinion is. This is the truth, and this is where I stand. Your kids are the target of distortion.
I'm only going to say it one more time, and then you're going to lose the privilege to eat.
You will be just absolutely shocked to find the sheer volume of footage on TikTok, especially, which shows Ruby weaponizing food, i.e. saying if you don't do this, if you're misbehaving, for very minor things, I will just point out, then she will not give you food, then you will not eat. In an article recently published by NBC News, neighbours accuse Franke of withholding food as a punishment for her children, a behaviour that was also shared on her YouTube channel. They also claimed that after her husband was out of the home, Franke would leave the house for weeks at a time with the children inside. Now, this is all going to start tallying up with what is now going on with her husband, KEVIN Franke. Now, I also did read, because this is a very popular theory, that they are no longer married. Now, according to a separate news article, according to his lawyer or attorney, they are in fact still married and he doesn't want to discuss divorce. So this is the very first time I've actually seen it printed. There were many times that there's been much speculation for a very long time that they have not been living together, that they haven't been together. And in this NBC article, it does actually state that as soon as KEVIN left the home around a year ago, Ruby would frequently disappear. One neighbour commented how Franke's youngest daughter would wander the neighbourhood while her mother was away for prolonged periods after she kicked KEVIN Franke out of the house. And this lines up with what everyone has been saying, which is the reason why kind of rumour speculation was running around that they weren't together. Now, if this article is correct, this other article right up here that I'm referencing, then they are in fact still married. There's actually been footage of him photographed outside of the house, outside of Ruby Franke's house, and he still has his wedding ring on. Now, is this at all shocking considering of their religion and things? I don't think so. But from what neighbours were saying, he got kicked out of the house and he hasn't been living there since. So does that mean that he hasn't seen those children for that whole entire year? According to newspaper articles as well, when they've interviewed the attorney, lawyer, whoever, whatever, turned around, and I addressed this before, and they said that he wants to do fatherly duties or whatever his phrasing was. Now, many people are extremely confused because first and foremost, they're saying, well, where the hell was KEVIN Franke when all this was happening? According to neighbours, he just disappeared. He up and left. He wasn't around, which is what a lot of people were thinking. And you might think, well, this is old news, like we already knew that. But the thing is, right, this basically signifies the fact that he hasn't been in those children's lives for that time, and I find it really difficult to understand why. Not in my belief thinking that the whole of the rest of the family didn't do enough. I understand that actually trying to get children out of homes despite there being obvious proof of neglect and abuse, I understand that it is actually a very, very difficult process. It's a lot more harder than just clicking your fingers and having someone come in and remove them. So I don't put specific blame on the rest of the family. I'm well aware that Ruby basically, is the word estranged? She isolated herself and her young children away from the rest of the family, away from Shari, the eldest daughter. Like, she fully cocooned them, took them out of school, which is exactly what this neighbour was saying in this article, and isolated them. And by the sounds of it, and exactly what the neighbours have been saying, as soon as KEVIN Franke was out of the picture, Jodie basically moved on it. And if Jodie wasn't in there, then Ruby would quite literally ditch her children and travel for weeks at a time to go and do connections at Jodie's house. It reads, officials said 2 children were taken to a hospital in St. George, Utah, about 255 miles southwest of Springville, where neighbours said Franke spent much of her time with Jodie Hildebrandt. Neighbours said that Franke began spending more time away from her home after she got involved with Hildebrandt's life counselling service, Connections. Now, is Kevin Franke completely innocent in all of this? Absolutely not. He was just as much of a disciplinarian as Ruby was. And of course, there is now that argument of, well, Jodie Hildebrandt, who's been arrested alongside Ruby, she's well known for splitting up marriages, splitting up couples, basically managing to get the women to be completely isolated from their husband. And this has been proven with many people coming forward and giving their own testimonials as to what it was like being guided by Jodie. But here is the great big but. He was also extremely for the Connections at the very beginning. There's even some pictures that I've managed to find of him wearing a little Connections t-shirt. For a while, he used to actually follow the Mums of Truth group. They did this whole like Zoom kind of whatever the hell was going on over there. I did a video on it. They were doing a video where, like, a live stream of him and Ruby talking about their sex life, which was, oh my God, it was so awkward. So he was complicit in it to a certain degree.
Mentally, I was an emotional vampire, honestly.
But according to neighbours, the very minute that he upped and left was the moment that Ruby basically just started leaving the house. And she just left the house for weeks and used to leave her children there all alone. And there's this one part of it which basically details the daughter that was actually pulled from Jodie Hildebrandt's house. There's neighbours basically saying that they had her just roaming the streets, knocking on doors, asking if their kids can play with them. And basically people started calling CPS, and the moment that people started calling CPS, she then started just boarding the windows up. And this is just horrifying. But even the neighbours will say that they could not get CPS to do anything else aside from just knock on the door. And that is really quite troubling, that authorities don't have the power just to go in and investigate if you're being told that kids are being left alone all the time. One neighbour said, "I'm really angry because I spoke up, other people spoke up, and nothing happened." The female neighbour said she and others in the neighbourhood asked the Utah Division of Child and Family Services to intervene multiple times. I'm finding it really quite troublesome to understand why Kevin couldn't just go and check on his kids during this whole time. It's extremely troubling. But I mean, I saw some footage not that long ago of this exact same child. Of this is the way that Ruby used to treat that child even prior to all of this going down, even when they were still doing the 8 Passengers channel. She's always been like this. She's always had a vindictive, evil flair about her.
Go win.
We are going to a movie, so go get on your shoes.
What is it? What?
Does it even matter? If someone asked me if I wanted to go to a movie, I wouldn't ask, what is it? Run and get your shoes or you're going to not go. Hurry. Everyone run. Hey, this is Ruby. I was wondering, is Brooke available to babysit?
Sorry.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. What a good idea for spring break.
Mom, I'm really sorry.
Well, good. I will call her again. Tell her I will call her again.
Sure.
Okay, have fun.
Your shoes
Uh-huh.
these socks.
Bye.
Okay. So I went to call
Babysitter's not available. I am not taking Eve, unless you come and give me a huge apology. You come give me a hug and you come say you're sorry.
I did.
No, again, where I can pay attention. It was not very thankful of you. I was excited and I told you to go get on your shoes and your jacket to see a movie. And you should say, okay, and be grateful. Instead of, well, what movie? Well, I don't know. Let me think about it. That's not very grateful, and I'm not going to take a girl who's not grateful. Can you show some more gratitude? Okay, give me a big hug.
Quite literally any child I know, myself, anyone I know, if you're going to say we're going to go see a movie, you're obviously going to ask, what movie are we going to be watching? It's how humans talk. It's how we communicate. Do you know what I mean? And as soon as I saw that, I just felt so unbelievably sorry, because this is the same child that they're talking about just roaming the streets, looking for someone to play with whilst Ruby has gone away, the dad's gone away, and there's no one to look after these kids. If neighbours are saying that Kevin just upped and left, and supposedly he's now trying to fight for full custody. A Redditor a little while ago, I actually remember reading this 11 months ago and thinking, oh, this sounds a little bit, is this real? I'm not really quite sure, but it literally matches up with everything that we now know. So a Redditor about 11 months ago, I'll throw it up right here, turned around and said, this is coming from a credible source, this is happening, and it so eerily lines up with what we now know today. So I'm just going to sort of like skim read it for you, but it was basically posted as Kevin has moved out, Jodie has moved in, and it's coming from a verified source. The same one who shared about one of the siblings move has contacted us with more information. So they confirmed that Shari has distanced herself completely from Ruby, and Ruby is becoming deeper and deeper entrenched in the Connections cult. They refer to themselves as Truth. Shari, Chad and Kevin do not have contact with the 4 youngest children or Ruby, and according to the source there has been talk that Connections is leading Ruby to be physically violent with the kids, and supposedly CPS has been called to the house multiple times and is investigating. Ruby left them home alone while on her recent Connections retreat, and they are no longer attending school. Jodie's car was spotted outside of the Franke home beginning 6 months ago, leaving many to believe that she is living with them. Kevin moved out afterwards. And yeah, this was 11 months ago. And this is eerily very, very, very similar to what neighbours are saying. But I just want to know, like, what the hell happened for Kevin to literally, like, up and leave. I mean, I've talked about it before. Everyone's talking about it at the minute. Jodie does, you know, separate people. But what has been said? What could have been done for Kevin just to walk away from his youngest kids, leaving them in that situation? Does anyone else find? I mean, I know that other people do. I think everyone does. It's completely wild to me how you would, like, complicitly just go like, oh, okay, I'm just going without any fuss, without demanding to see your children. I mentally don't understand it, which is the reason why I'm even more stunted to find that he's now, like, trying to file for the custody. He's, you know, wanting them back in the care. He's acting as if, you know, he had absolutely no idea. And by the sounds of it, he didn't have any idea. But the problem is that I want to know what led him to that, to not see his kids. Like, what led him to that decision in the very first place? There's literally, there's this Reddit post from 11 months ago. There's now numerous articles that have come out stating that neighbours said that he left the house a year ago. It all adds up. And it's literally like these children were abandoned, and both parents, one was active in abusing her kids and the other one just upped and left. And I simply don't understand why. That's all this is getting at. I don't understand why. People have known that they were disciplinarians. People know that they were overly strict, that their approach wasn't the nicest, and that yes, it was abusive in many different ways. Given people saying this and that was going on, that the authorities just didn't do anything more than knock on a door. And that whether people like it or not, that's been said from the rest of the family's perspective, them saying they've tried. Neighbours have now said, we tried many instances, they wouldn't do anything else. So what would it have taken for them to have gone the extra mile? That's all I'm saying, because I just find it really hard to wrap my head around it, and it's really frustrating and upsetting.
Because my kids were being hurt. With entitlement, they were being hurt with people's advice, and they didn't have a mother up the front saying, I don't care what the world's opinion is. This is the truth, and this is where I stand. Your kids are the target of distortion.
Basically all I've really got today. I'm really sorry for this rambly ranty video at the end, but I just wanted to get my thoughts and feelings across. I hope you guys have a wonderful day wherever you are in this world. Take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch up with you guys in the next video.
Took place.
Yes, no, actually this is Ruby's fault, actually. Ruby, she bought chocolate licorice. So then she offers me chocolate licorice. I'm in distortion, by the way.
Yeah, I'm like, how can you get to blame me and I have to be in truth?